Oh, good morning, everybody. I've boxed up all my cows, and most of you that have been here before know that I have the pattern for the basic body on my website. It is free. If you go to my link tree, there's actually a link that goes right to it. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. My website's basic and simple. There's no ads. There's no all that other fun stuff around it. So if you go and you click patterns, you'll see the pattern for the basic body. And I did this weekend manage to get the accessory pieces for the cows. Let me go grab a cow. So basic body, cow, as you can see, I was making cows to use up my bells. So on my website, if you do go, you can find this under the pattern, under the menu, and there is also a place there for links that I will have to accessories where you can make this basic body into a bunch of other things. So far, the only subpage I have on there for the accessory are the cows. So when you go to the pattern page, it'll have a place where it says accessory pieces right above the pattern, and it has how to make the ears, the horns, and the nose, and then you just kind of put them on the way you want them to look. It's Monday. I work the weekend, so I'm just as tired as everybody else who does go to work on the Mondays. I don't always get to sleep that great during the week. I do have my coffee. By the end of the podcast, you'll realize why I drink decaf. I still like my coffee though. I used to be able to drink pots of caffeine. Then I got older. Okay, so this basic body. This weekend, I turned into my bunny. So hopefully by the end of the day today, I will have the really only accessory pieces for the bunny are the ears. So hopefully by the end of the day, I will have them all typed up, and I will have that link for the bunny pieces for the bunny ears as well. And for the bunny, I just made bigger eyes, or I used bigger eyes, and I used a little, my eyes came with noses this time, and then I just embroidered my little mouth on. But yeah. Oh, and the tail. Add a little tail to the back. Can't forget the tail. But the ears are easy. They're just it's just a flat piece. It's not like a round, long piece. It's just a flat piece. And two of them stitched together on easy. So now out of the one body that you can find the pattern for on my website, and it's free, you can make a cow. And hopefully by the end of the day, you can make the bunny. I might actually do a giraffe out of it. I know you're asking, how am I going to do a giraffe out of it? But to be honest, most amigurumi patterns are very similar. So they all start out with, like I was talking to my grandson yesterday, and he says, oh, yeah, I made a plushie. And I say, oh yeah, what did you make? He's like, well, it's just kind of a potato. And I said, well, honey, if you can make a potato, you can make any other kind of plushie you want, because it's basically just a potato, two more potatoes, two more potatoes. I mean, it's amigurumi's simple it's the pieces and the accessories to make it into what you want it to be that make it difficult. I'm keeping this one for everybody who wants to use this pattern. I'm keeping the accessories for the pieces, and again, it's all the same body. I'm keeping them simple so that, I mean, you can still make something that looks like really decent. It's just simple. But back to the giraffe. So if I make a giraffe, the only thing I would do with the giraffe is where I have the neck here. I would add more of these smaller neck rounds to elongate the neck, before I actually started the body part. And then I would put like the ears and the horns and the nose on it. But that's how I would do that as a giraffe. And I might do that later tonight, I might not do that later tonight, I don't know. The other thing I worked on this weekend when I had time to get done was my watermelon bag. And I have to stop. My watermelon bag, and it's like crossbody size. It's not that big. You can see if I put my hand here. It's not that big, but it's big enough for a crossbody or a wristlet. I did get the wristlet strap done, and I did get most of my lining done. I just have to stitch the very bottom where I flipped it. And I added grommets, but I took the lining piece and just put one grommet, and it was kind of hard to get my rings in there with one grommet because then you can't really see the grommets from the inside. So I think I might actually just use a grommet on each side. That way I can pull it apart and see where I'm getting my rings a little bit easier. But yeah, it's my watermelon crossbody bag. I decided, since I have a stack of pockets, that I would fold a pocket in half and make like it's not really a cell phone pocket because the bag's not big enough or deep enough to actually just put a cell phone pocket in, so I folded it up so it's got like two little card pockets in it. And my watermelon lining, but you can see that a little bit better maybe that way. And I did this just to experiment. Like I've done where you embroider the zippers and then crochet around it. I did this one, I did the bag first, and then I embroidered the zipper with a chain stitch. I embroidered the zipper with a chain stitch, and then I attached my piece with slip stitches to that chain stitch all the way across. So when you look in the inside of the bag, you can actually see the row of yarn right above the lining where I stitched the chain stitch to the zipper. Typically when I make a bag, I would make a front piece and a back piece, and I would just put it on my sewing machine and sew it to the zipper with some transparent thread, and you really can't tell. If you use transparent thread and a bigger stitch, thank you for the likes. If you use transparent thread and a bigger stitch, you really can't see the stitching on the outside on the crochet part of the bag. It just kind of like blends in. The seeds are so perfect. Okay, the seeds, where I decided when you buy safety eyes in bulk, a lot of times they come in different sizes, and I have so many of these little teeny tiny eyes, and as you can see with like the bunny and, sorry I'm shaking my camera, and the cow, I use bigger eyes for my stuff because I like them to have that bigger anime look to them, because it kind of makes them look more like a plushie. But they all come with these little teeny tiny, and you see they're smaller than my finger, and I have some that are even smaller than that. So I just lined up and I actually used my safety eyes for my seeds. And then so they don't, oh, I can show you because I didn't finish stitch. I have just the very bottom where I turn it to stitch, but I can kind of show you. When I put my safety eyes on, I usually put a piece of felt, and then I push my safety eye through the felt, and then once I push my safety eye through the felt, I put my washer on top, and then I burn the top of the washer flat so that it can't come off, and then I glue the felt with permanent fabric glue so that they can't be pushed in. They can't be pushed in because the felt's glued there, and they're not going to be pulled out because they're glued and they're burned down flat on top. But that's how I did the seeds. That's how I do the eyes for my amigurumi. For the amigurumi and the dolls. Good morning, Janie. My watermelon bag I finished. But for the eyes for the dolls, I actually have, it's Pellon, and you can see it's pretty stiff. And that's what I use. I'll cut a square when I put my eyes on, so I'll cut a square and put that inside the head and do it the same way and glue it. But here's my, thanks, Janie. Did you see the whole thing? I got it lined. I got a little pocket in there. I managed to get the wristlet strap done, and then I have a darker green cotton twill and some more of this polka dotted black fabric that I'm actually going to make it so that it's like a crossbody bag. Like you could, I'll sell it with not only the wristlet strap, but a strap that you can adjust and use as a crossbody bag as well. But thank you very much. Did you see my bunnies? I made the body a bunny too. I have the cow pieces on my website. So if you do the doll, you can do the cow pieces as well. Cute wristlet too. So last weekend we were working on, I was working on the shark puppets, and because I usually sell a bunch of them at I do a vendor event usually just once a year, and I always have way too much stock, but I guess you can never have too much stock. This is the shark puppet. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you love the bunny. This is the shark puppet that I was working on. And, of course, my husband took one look at those blue sharks and went, "You don't have any gray?" Well, no. I live in a smaller, tinier house. I downsized when I left the city. So I don't have, like, a huge yarn wall stash. So when we went out, I did indeed buy some gray to make my sharks. And we got to the point where I showed you how to put the teeth in. Yeah, I'm going to have the, hopefully have the ear pattern on my website later on today. Because it's, for the bunny, it was just really the 2 ears and pom-pom for the tail. But, yeah, I did the teeth. And I thought today I would show you how to do the fins. There are tips and tricks to amigurumi. Sorry, so ladylike this morning. There are tips and tricks to amigurumi that are kind of like very personal. It's like an artistic thing. Like you can, if you can yarn over and pull your yarn through a loop or through a stitch, you can basically manipulate that movement to do pretty much anything you want to do to make anything look like anything, just like the three-dimensional shark teeth. It's just a matter of doodling, listening to people like me talk. Like, I listen to a lot of people talk, and when I wanted to do things, I would look up things and just put those different techniques together in different ways. I mean, it's all basically the same thing. Yarn over, pull up a loop. It's just a matter of how you do them. But I did want to show you, there's Sir Charles. I did want to show you how to do the fins, because the top fin, if you look at the top fin on the picture, the top fin is actually curved like a shark fin. And I'm pretty sure, I didn't read through the rest of the pattern, but I'm pretty sure to make curves like that when you're going around, you use, right, Charlie, my dog likes to do all kinds of things. Mostly sit here and huff at me. But you'll see how the shark fin is curved. And to get that curve, you use a technique that's called short rows. And short rows are basically, instead of going all the way around the circle like you are doing your spiral, wherever you want it to curve, you want like an additional bit of stitching. So you would go back and forth, and then you would go back all the way around. So you add the that extra row of stitching where you want it to curve. But I will show you that today, because I now have 2 gray sharks made, 2 blue sharks made, and I just have to do some fins. See where that page is. Yeah, this is my pattern, believe it or not. But I do so much doodling that if I don't write them down and I don't have them somewhere, I tend to forget. So some of them I actually publish. This shark is actually published on Ravelry. Here's a better picture of the thing. Just because I took the time to do it, I might as well put it on there. If somebody wants it, they can. And if somebody really wants it and can't afford it, all they have to do is message me and I'll just send it to them. But there's a better picture of the shark fin and how it curves. And I'm going to let Sir Charles out here. My chocolate lab, for those of you who are new to joining us. He is a chocolate lab. I've dubbed him Sir Charles, in charge of the chocolate factory. And he will sit here and huff at me until I get out and get up and try to let him out. And then he doesn't want out. And then he wants his bone full of peanut butter. And then we are definitely going to sit and we are going to finish at least one fin so I can show you how to do the short rows. This live probably won't be quite as long as some of the other ones because I do have some computer stuff that I want to do. Trying to upload a lot of my videos to YouTube Shorts as well, and like trying to go through my camera roll is just like a bomb exploded inside my phone. It's just, there's pictures and videos everywhere, mostly of yarn and stuff, so I have to go through them and figure out which videos are decent enough to put on the YouTube Shorts. But I figured I would try YouTube Shorts as well as TikTok, just in case. Not that I think anything's really going to happen, but just in case. So, I will put my stuff up here to keep you company for like a minute while I take care of this huffy dog. Your pictures are great and your instructions. Can't wait to start the show. Thank you very much. I try my best. Sometimes I can get them, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I get them in the morning, sometimes I get them in the evening, and the lighting's different and the colors look all off. But I try to at least get like a basic decent picture where you can get the idea of what I'm doing. Let me take care of this dog, which of those of you who have been here before realize that this is No matter what I do to make him happy before I get on here, he's feels the need to come and say his piece. So let me, my cow, my bunny, my doll, my watermelon. See my watermelon. Let me let him out. What? You out? I know what you want. Here. Easy. Easy. See ya. That's like his little trick. He'll huff at me like he wants out. No, I'm shaking the camera. He'll huff at me like he wants out. And then walks to the door and walks to the kitchen. Because since I've been doing this, I've been giving him like a soup bone full of peanut butter to like get rid of him. Because if I don't, I swear in another life he must have been some little old lady that sat and crocheted and did stuff like this, because he sits there and huffs at me like he's mad he doesn't have thumbs and can't do it too. I don't know. He does need some anti-anxiety meds. But on to the sharks, so I can get at least one shark fin done. Whoops. Well, you know what? I have this one attached still. So, and I think I was working, yeah. So let me finish up this tail real quick. The puppets are the same way. I have two basic puppet patterns. One is for pointed nose puppet, and one is for a rounder nose puppet. So if you want to make like the shark, you would use the pointed one. If you want to make a fox, you would use a pointed one. If you wanted to make a duck, you would use the pointed one. If you wanted to do things like bunnies, goats, ladybugs, cows, things like that, you would use the other basic puppet, and eventually I'll get both of my basic puppets up there too. And then once you do the basic puppet, it's just a matter of the embellishments, the accessories, things like that you put on it. But I'm going to finish up this, or most of this tail portion. So that I can cut my thread, because I don't want to cut my thread and reattach it, if you guys don't mind. It shouldn't take me long to do this at all. But how's everybody's weekends? Anybody? Anybody have a good weekend? Anybody have a really bad weekend? I hope not. This is pretty easy. Mother can't understand. Um, my mother can't understand how I make the project and then go back and make it again, like a second, third, fourth time, without even usually referencing my pattern. Because most of this stuff I've made so many times, I just need like a jolt for that first one to read the pattern through again, and then like muscle memory takes over, because I have made a ton of these. I have a ton of patterns, a ton of puppets. I do have a goat. I love the goat. I love the goat. The goat has like little like hooked so I crocheted all weekend. Yeah, it sounds like a good weekend to me. Um, the goat has little hooked horns and then ears just like the cow. And then he's got like this little tuft of hair at the bottom. Like he really looked like a goat. I was happy with how that one turned out. Some of them not so happy. Ladybugs, I did some ladybugs. I wasn't real happy with the ladybugs, only because I had to sew spots on them. The next time I think maybe I will just use safety eyes like I did for the watermelon. 2, 3, 4. I do need to read this. I'm almost done. 2, 3, 4. So then here I can show you. Sat run crocheted all weekend. What did you manage to crochet, Janie? Anything good? Although I know when I don't feel good, I don't usually crochet anything good. I usually just sit there and work on a blanket or a scarf or something mindless. Thank you very much for all the likes. I appreciate it. But yeah, if I'm not feeling all that up to par, I'll usually just sit and do something mindless like a blanket or a scarf so that I don't really have to think. One of the other mindless things I'll do are these puppets, because you can see it's pretty much just going around in a circle, and I have a certain amount of rows, and if I add a row, if I miss a row, if it's a little bit shorter or a little bit longer, it doesn't matter. But puppets are so easy, I just keep going around in circles. So sometimes by the end of the weekend I'll have, like I think a bag full of white ones for unicorns in my whip bin that I made one weekend that of course now don't have horns or fluff or anything else on them. So maybe I'll pull those out today and work on those tomorrow and show you how the puppet can be made just as basic as the doll. Started a granny stripe blanket. Need to change colors every row. Bleh. Yeah, I do that to myself sometimes too. I was never really a granny square person. But for this year, for some reason, it seems like granny squares are like it seems like everybody's making granny squares. And I don't know, my my tails are basically chains, and then I single crochet back, and then to do the last row I just put a shell stitch. And come on, slip in the single crochet in the last one. So making that shell stitch kind of gives you the looks like the tail. So like I said, sometimes it's just about being a little bit creative and how can I make the shape the way I want to make it. Sometimes that's what it's all about. And I don't mind doing that. I call it doodling. My husband will walk in and say, "What are you making now?" And sometimes I really just don't know. Sometimes I just need to pick up a piece of yarn and start to crochet. And at that point I call it doodling. And eventually something strikes me and tail looks perfect. Thank you very much. Sometimes something strikes me and I think, oh, if I do it this way, I can make this. So a lot of what I do ends up with a doodle, or starts with a doodle, ends up with, yeah, you know what? And it's just a shelf stitch. Nothing special about it. There's just 7 crochets in the stitch, and I work back with a slip stitch to get to the other side. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'll work back along the other side. And then I'm just, since this is the second side of the tail, I will just work to the middle of it. I'll just work to the middle of it, and then I'll cut. And of course I left my scissors with my sewing machine. Give me 1 second. Again, it's Monday. Okay. So then I'll just cut that off, and I'll pull it off, and then I will take my ends and I'll weave it down in here somewhere, and then tie my knot, and then weave in the rest of the ends. You can't see it, but you can see this. It's, the tail is just two shells. So when you get a shark with a tail. And I know when you look at it like this, I had mentioned before that the bottom side looks much, much shorter, but with the curve of your hand, when you're using it and working it as a puppet, as you can see with the curve of your hand, it brings them together. So if you made them both the same size, the top and the bottom both the same size, this would end up like jutting out like this, and doesn't look that great. Other puppets that I've made with these basic patterns are frogs, and I explained the frog. Any tip on weaving in my ends? Not really. I do go back and forth at least twice, and so when I weave through my ends, I guess I shouldn't say not really. I guess everybody has their own ways to doing things, and so when I weave in my end, I will, this is the right side of the puppet. I would take the wrong side of the puppet, and on this puppet, I would probably weave down just to the side of the tail, because you can see there's like a group of knots there before the shell stitch. So I would weave down there, and then I would do my typical knot that I like to do, which would be I insert my hook into just any bar of any stitch, I chain 2, I pull the loop through, and then you can take that and you can just kind of push it down. And as you've pushed it down, it creates the knot. And after I've created that knot, I put my tapestry needle back on, and then I will, somewhere right near the knot, I will just start weaving my ends in. I'll weave it through that whole shell once, and after I've done that, I will pick up, see if I can show you. Once I've done that, I will kind of like pick up around a different stitch. So maybe this one. And then I will go back through. And I will weave it the same way that I went, trying to actually weave through the same piece of yarn. So I would try to pick up, and I usually go all the way back down to my knot, but I would try to actually catch the same yarn that I wove this way. I try to catch going through it so that it kind of like makes it a little bit more difficult to unravel. And I know it works because I've already tried to unknot things before they've been washed, after they've been washed, and I wasn't real happy with myself when I had to pick those knots out and try to do something over again. So it will stick. And then I just cut off the end. Fishtail. Alright, so now I have a dog that's done with his peanut butter and really does want to go outside. And then we're going to work on the large. I like your chain 2 knot method. Yeah, I like to do chain 2 and just pull it through. But I don't, it depends. If, like, when I'm doing the puppets, the first piece is done. This is the first piece, just this top jaw. So when I'm doing this first piece, because I'm going to be attaching other things to it and you're really not going to see it, I'll just chain 2 and just pull it up. But if I'm making a piece where I don't really have anything, but if I'm making a piece where like you're going to see the edge, I usually try to pull my yarn through like it looks like another stitch on top, and then I weave it down into the back of the fabric, and then I do my chain 2 knot it and pull it through. That way you don't really see a knot on the top. It just looks like it doesn't even look like you looped it through. If you loop it through so it looks just like a chain going in the same place and out the same place, and then weave it down through here, through the back of your fabric before you actually tie the knot, then you don't really see a knot on your fabric. So like that's what I did with this. Instead of just in the center of it, instead of just in the center of it, chaining 2 and knotting it, I will take it and weave it down like I did with the other one. This is the one that I did. This is the second one. But I'll weave it down in almost to where I want to weave it in, and then I'll knot it, and then I'll weave it back and forth. That way when you look at the top of the tail, you won't see a knot. You'll just see like the stitches, and the knot is hidden down in here in the back of the fabric. But that's how I started doing my knots. But you know, I even put an old blanket on the couch, which is like arms length away, so that the dog could sit there and watch me. And that didn't work. You're very welcome. Didn't work. He still has to harass me. I actually did do something with my hair this morning. Well, I washed it. That's something to me, especially on a Monday. We let him out, and then I promise you, as soon as I let him out, 30 seconds, I will come back and I will start the shark's fin, so I can show you with the short rows how I make that fin curve so that it looks like the top of the shark's fin. Come on. You have to go outside? Go. Okay, so thank you everybody that joined the live. Thank you everybody that liked the live. You guys make me so happy. I think I'm going to take my lives and like I've been trying to put all my shorts onto YouTube Shorts, which was a suggestion by from my daughter and my son and my husband. So I've been working on trying to get those up, and the fact that I have tried to post every day for months, I have like a lot of videos to try to upload. But I think I might actually download some of the lives that I do and call them podcasts and call it a day. Who knows? I certainly do talk enough, I guess. Okay, so the large black fin. And again, this one doesn't have an alternate. This just says magic loop. I know it's backwards. It just says magic loop in single crochet 6. You do not have to use a magic loop if you aren't sure how to use them or aren't comfortable with using them. You can actually do the chain 2 method. So the chain 2 method would be to chain 2 and just make those same single crochets that you would make in the magic loop. You would make them in the second chain from the hook. When you do that, sometimes you get a large gap, like a ring gap, and I leave a longer end so that I can kind of take that ring gap and I can weave my end in and knot it and pull it so that it doesn't look like it's too big of a hole. But I am going to use a magic loop, and for this one it is, get closer, try to so you guys can see what I'm doing. So this is my magic loop in a single crochet 4. I know right now it's backwards, but when I get to the parts that you need to see, I will turn it. And I'm a bobby pin freak. I like my bobby pins for stitch markers because they go in and out really quickly. Taking a liar on myself, in and out really quickly. And I can keep changing them. Because when you're doing like puppets and dolls and amigurumi like that, you're not chaining, or you're not chaining one and starting a new round, because by doing that you actually leave a seam. You're actually going to work in spirals. So if you don't keep track of your first stitch, it's really easy to lose count. And when I do my magic ring, you always have to secure it. So when I do my magic ring, once I've done the first round of my magic ring, you can kind of see where there it is focused, where this was the chain. Ignore. Sorry, my Bluetooth's connected to my work phone, which shouldn't be ringing, because I'm done. Mondays and Tuesdays are my days off. So, not the first stitch, but the chain that you did before the first stitch. I would insert a smaller hook, and then I would pick up the tail, and again do the same chain 2. This is after I've pulled it tight. So I've pulled it tight, I've picked up the chain loop before my first stitch. I'm going to pick up the tail, and I'm going to chain my 2, and I'm going to slide that knot down, and that will secure my magic ring. and I can always go back and weave this in, or if it's inside something, just tuck it in like the stuffing. But you always have to secure a magic ring. Anybody that tells you you don't have to, it hasn't watched their project. Because if you don't secure a magic ring or a magic loop, or everybody calls it different things. If you do not secure that magic ring or that magic loop, it will come undone, even if you wrap it around twice. So you do at some point have to either weave it in at the end and knot it somewhere, or that's the method I like. When I'm finished with the first round, I pick up the side chain there that I chained one through my loop to start, and then I just chain two with my tail and pull it through and pull that knot. That way, I know my magic ring isn't coming apart. Okay, so the first one was magic loop, single crochet 4. So the next one is going to be a single crochet and increase and a single crochet and increase. So I'm going to go to 6. So the first one can be a little bit tight, but so I'm going to try to stay in. So single crochet, mark my first stitch. So that's 1. And my increases again, since you're only going to see the front side of this puppet, I'll do a invisible increase, which means I will, this is the stitch I want to increase in. This is the stitch I just did. This is the stitch I just did. This is the stitch I want to increase in. So I will, lost my small hook there. Here it is. So I will first do the first stitch of the increase through the back loop, and I will do the second stitch of the increase through the front loop, and then you won't get like that big giant hole from putting 2 stitches into 1 stitch. It kind of divides it up. So 1, 2, 3. So that's my increase. And as you can see, I have the 1, 2, 3 stitches where I increased, but you don't get the hole. So it doesn't really look like you have a giant hole from your increase. And then 4, and I'll do my increase the same way. 6. There's a way to decrease as well without getting like that lump bump on the front side. I only do the invisible increases and decreases when I have a piece that I'm only going to see the one side on, because if not, the back side would look a little bit different. So when I do the whole puppet and I'm increasing and decreasing, I use that invisible method. But when I'm doing the tail portion of it, and I'm bringing it down, you're gonna see both sides. So I just do a regular increase or decrease for that one. Okay, so that was round 2. There's only 8 rounds to the fin. So that was round 2. Round 3 is I'm going to do the same thing. Single crochet and increase to 9 stitches. And again, I'm going to mark, because as I chatter away, I will just totally lose count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when I'm doing that increase, that invisible increase, the back loop is always easy to get your stitch in, right? It's then when you come to the front loop that can be a little bit difficult to get your, if you just try to like get your yarn in there. So when you come to the front loop, I will hook up this way to get my yarn in there to be able to then finish the stitch. So I did my first stitch in the back loop, and now I have to do my second stitch in the front loop. So I'm actually going to take it and I'm going to, it's kind of hard to do it at this angle, so I'm going to kind of hook it up through there that way because it's easier to pick up. And then I'm just going to work that second stitch in that. And that gave me the last increase. All right, so I actually have written in the pattern that the next couple of steps will incorporate short rows. So I do try to explain them in my patterns. So I'll read the whole step to you. So the next couple of steps will incorporate short rows. You'll be turning back and forth mid-rounds. Do not chain one with these turns. This will create a curvature in the fin. So this one, I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches, which is the beginning of my round. So I'll single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And I will show you closer when I get to that point. Let's see, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, increase in the next stitch, so that gives me 4 stitches. Okay, now then the instruction said, so I've single crocheted in 2 stitches, I've increased in 1 stitch, it gives me 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I am going to turn my work. I am not going to chain 1. I'm going to, you might have to make your loop a little bit looser because you don't chain 1, but I'm going to go backwards and I'm going to single crochet in those 4 stitches back to the beginning. 2, 3, 4, and that 4th stitch is actually going to be the same stitch that's stitch number 1. I'm just reading my pattern to make sure I'm getting it right, because I haven't done this one in a long time. It's probably been about 2 years since I made sharks. Then I'm going to turn again without chaining 1. So now you can see I turned again, and now I'm actually working the round the way it should be. And I'm going to sorry, I'm just reading. Single crochet those 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see how I've added some depth to my round. I don't know if you can tell that. I've added some depth to my round. This is going to be my fin, and I wanted to add some depth to my round so that my fin actually curls. So you'll see that when I continue this one. Okay, so then to continue around, I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches, increase in the next stitch. So when I'm doing my rounds like this and I do my short rows, so that I don't, and you want to make sure, like this is the stitch that you did your 4th stitch in. This is the next stitch that you're going to do your round in. So you can see the stitch that you put your 4th stitch in. and then you can see the next stitch that you're going to actually, that's on the round. I am actually going to pick up a loop from the side of my short row, and then I'm going to pick up the front loop for my next stitch, and I'm going to single crochet that, so through those two loops and through those two loops, almost like a decrease, like I'm decreasing the side of it with the next stitch. Like I'm not actually decreasing stitches, I'm just pulling that side stitch down a little bit closer so that it doesn't bubble out. You don't have to do that. It's just one of those things that I do. So that was my first single crochet, my second single crochet, and I'm going to increase, and then I'm going to single crochet 2 more, and that brings me to the last stitch, and I'm going to increase, and that's round 4 is completed. In the same way, when you do this very last stitch, you can either do this very last stitch and then start up here at the top of the short rows, or you can take that very last stitch and pick up the front stitch and pick up the side of the short row. You're not adding or decreasing any stitches, you're just picking up the side of the short row just to make it a little bit smoother. And again, that's not something you have to do. So that at the end of this round with my short rows, you can see, I don't know if you can see that or not. With the next one, you'll definitely be able to see. But you can see it's a little bit off center. So if I hold it straight, you can see that it's already starting to curve because I added an extra row, and extra 2 rows actually when you do short rows of stitches around the one side, so it will start to curve. So the next row is actually going to be another set of short rows, I think. Oh no, I only did that one short row. You could, if you wanted this to curve even more, you could then do another set of short rows. You would just have to make sure you're in the center, but I'm not doing that. So we did that one short row, and I'm going to come back up here, and you see where I have the first stitch marked, but this was the first stitch we did for the short row. That then becomes your first stitch. So for this next round, so there's really only one short row in that fin, which is perfect because you don't have to think about it too much. So 1, oh, there is another short row. So I'm going to single crochet 3, 2, 3, and then I'm going to increase a stitch. So I single crocheted my 1, 2, 3, and then I single crocheted my 1, 2, 3, and then I have my 2 stitches for my increase, and then I'm going to turn. So I have 5 stitches total. I'm going to turn. I'm not going to chain 1. I'm just going to chain back around those 5 stitches. Four, and again the 5th one will be the first stitch. 5. I'm going to turn again. You can see I've added rows. You can see that. And I'm not going to chain 1. I'm just going to single crochet back that 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, So you can see a little bit more how it's starting to curve because you're adding the short rows. And then I'm going to continue around with a single crochet 3 and an increase, and a single crochet and an increase. And again, my first single crochet, I'm going to pick up the side of my, make sure I'm not getting, because it's easy when you're looking at it to think that this is the stitch that you need to go into. But this is the stitch that you actually made your 5th one in. You actually want to go into the next, make sure you're getting into the next stitch, not the stitch you finished your 5th stitch of your short row. But I am going to pick up the side and then the front loop of that first stitch there, just to kind of pull it tight together. So that's 1, 2, 3, and my increase, and 1, 2, 3, and then my increase. And again, with my very last stitch of my increase, I'm going to pick up that front loop, and I'm also going to pick up the side of the short row, just to kind of pull them together. Sometimes it can be a little bit tight, but that's okay. That was the side of the short row. This is the first stitch. So you want to make sure you get the side of the short row, not the first stitch. So I did the side of the short row and the last stitch together just to pull it together a little bit more. So now I'm going to move my bobby pin to where that first stitch was that I first did. And now I should have 15 stitches around. So now you can see by adding those short rows, because we've added a short row here, whereas you're not just getting a cylinder. You added a short row here, right? And then you added another short row here. So it makes this longer. So when you see people doing like these like fancy dragons and snakes that have all these curves in them and they stay that way, this is how they do them. They do them with short rows. So my next 2 rounds are just simply going to be going around and increasing. So the next one is going to be all my fuzz from my other projects. Single crochet 4 and increase. It's 2, 3, 4, and increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, and increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then my increase. And now you can kind of really see how it's curved. So you have like the point of the fin up here, but because you created these short rows, you don't have a perfect conical shape. You have the fin that curves this way. Make sense? And you still have your opening at the bottom though, so that you can sew it on. So there's 2 more rows. So the next one is going to be single crochet 5 and increase. And then I'll show you how I would stitch this on. 2, 3, 4, 5, and work my increase. These are just regular rounds without short rows. 2, 3, 4, 5, and increase. One more set. 2, 3, 4, 5, and increase. That was my tail from my beginning. I'm just going to tuck it in there so it's not getting in the way. And then there's one more row to this, which is 6 and increase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and increase. This is the mundane part. I really just wanted to show you the short rows. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and increase. And that is the end of it. I should have 24 stitches here now, and I know I do have 24 stitches because my counts came out right. Oh, thanks. So you see, if you didn't add short rows, you would just end up with, okay, so what I'm going to do at the very, very end. At the very, very end, I'm just going to slip stitch into the last stitch, and I'm going to cut my, maybe, here it is. I'm going to cut my tail fairly long, and then I'm just going to pull it through. I'm not going to knot it because I'm going to use it to sew and then knot, but you see, if you just did the fin without the short rows, you would end up with just like a cone shape, right? But when you add the short rows to it, because you increased rows here, it kind of pushes that point backwards because you've increased your stitches. And then I would take my shark, and I'll refer to my picture for my placement, since I don't have another one. Usually I'll do a few of them at a time, so I can it's usually sitting here and I can see it. Back behind the head. Okay, so if I put my puppet on my hand, my bobby pins are sticking out everywhere. So if I put my puppet on my hand, I want the fin to be here. Does that make sense? I want it to be down the center here so that it sticks out the back and it's not like over top of here, because I would put my eyes here. So I would then take this, and because it's round like this, I'm not going to stitch this together. I'm actually going to stitch around both sides with just maybe a little bit of a gap. So if I have just a little bit of a gap like that, and then I put it on and I stitch around the whole thing, it will then look like it's a little thicker at the, have it turned, so it will look like it's a little thicker at the base than it is at the top. Does that make sense? And it will stay and hold that shape instead of just flopping back and forth. So that's how I would then sew it around. Oh, I'm glad you were here today too, Janie. Um, so yeah, that's the fin, and that's how I do my short rows. Eventually, I'll get my basic puppet pieces up there. Tonight, I'm going to work on getting the basic amigurumi doll is on my website. It is a free pattern. There's no ads, there's no clickbait, there's nothing on it. It's just a simple website that I use as like a portfolio. Um, but I do have this listed on there as a page. You can get to the page if you go to my bio. You can click on the link in the bio in my link tree, and it'll take you right to this pattern. And so far, the only accessory pieces I have up there for this basic piece is the accessory pieces for the cow, which would be the ears, the horns, and the nose. Love that bell. And then at some point tonight, I'm going to try to get, I know it's such a small thing, but to sit and type it and try to do all this takes me like all day sometimes. The ear pattern for the bunny. So if you want to make a bunny, I will have an accessory page that has a picture of the bunny with the ears, and then I just put like a basic pom-pom on the, looks like I could use a little trim. I just put a basic pom-pom on the back, and then I tie my ribbons. But so, yeah, from this basic doll, because amigurumi starts out very simple. It's all the pieces you put on it that make it difficult, but so simple. And the pieces that I'll give you are simple. At a private class. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. You know, I'm going to sit and do it anyway. So I might as well turn on my camera and sit and like help people, because these are things that took me, they weren't hard to learn, but let me tell you what. When the internet started like getting really big, I loved the internet. And I am like typical Gen X. I embraced that technology and ran with it. So like to learn all these things, like you know, you can Google like, how do I do my increases without putting holes, and you know, things like, you know, silly things like that, and you actually get answers and you can find things. YouTube tutorials, not so much. My daughter won't follow a pattern. She follows YouTube tutorials. I grew up a bookworm, so I usually have patterns everywhere. I have a bookshelf full of patterns. I'm sure you guys have seen my book, my encyclopedia of crochet, that I actually have to have. Rose, Janie, thank you so much. I appreciate that. But my encyclopedia of crochet, I actually have to go through every once in a while and put the pages back where they belong. And it sits inside a Ziploc bag because it's probably in like as many pieces as there are pages. One of these days I'll have to show you one of the patterns in that encyclopedia of crochet book is called the Philosopher's Coat. And I actually, that is probably the only project that I went out and I bought all the yarn for all at once and sat down and did the whole piece and made the whole piece. And it's funny because it's supposed to have pockets, and I had all this leftover yarn, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with this yarn? Totally forgot about the pockets. Made a dog sweater instead. So it doesn't have pockets. It doesn't have buttons either. It does have buttonholes, but I never sewed buttons on it. And it's probably about 10 or 15 years old now. And yeah, really. I mean, right. And then I sat there and looked at the dog and went, that was supposed to be my pockets. It's like, oh wow. I don't know. But anyway, so now my daughter, who's 17, looks at the sweater. Again, it's called the Philosopher's Coat. And she looks at the sweater and she's like, oh my God. Now she wears it everywhere. And it's almost like every single different row is a different textured stitch or row. But it's the Philosopher's Coat from the Encyclopedia of Crochet. I'm sure if you Googled it, it would come up. But I did it almost all the same colors. I made myself like this ridiculous looking like top hat type bucket hat that like matches it with all the same stitches. And yeah, maybe I'll bring that piece out tomorrow and show you guys. But for now, I'm done. I need to finish sewing my straps for my watermelon bags. I'm going to finish doing some teeth and some more fins for my sharks. Again, this is my basic amigurumi doll that I do have a free pattern on my web page. It's just my personal web page, like a gallery. There's no clickbait or ads on it, so you can just go to patterns and pull this up. I do have on that page a place where you can click and get the pattern for the pieces, the accessory pieces for the cow. Hopefully I will get the accessory pieces for the bunny, which is just really just the 2 ears. And then I just embroidered the nose, or well, it's actually a safety nose, which came with the last package of eyes I bought. And then I just embroidered the mouth on. But yeah, thanks for joining me today. I'm glad I could be of help. Rose, you just make my day with the compliments. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to DM me. If you cannot find, if you're not real sure where to find the patterns or the link trees, just let me know. I'll usually get back to everybody. If you really have a question, want me to respond, or want a pattern, you can always go to my website and go to the contact page. You're very welcome, and I'll see you. I'll probably be back on tomorrow. It's probably going to be more around like 9:30, 9:45-ish. I say in between 9 and 10, but by the time I get myself together, that's usually about when I get on. But yeah, you can contact me that way through my contact page on my website as well, and that comes right to my email, and I usually check that once or twice a day. Thank you for everybody who joined me. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for everything else and all the support. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.